comment, please press star 1 and please record your name. I would now like to turn today's call over to Ms. Dava Cowell. Thank you. You may begin.
Thank you, and thank you all for calling in today. The purpose of today's call is to receive public input on the Central States Pension Plan application to reduce pension benefits under the Klein-Miller Multi-Employer Pension Reform Act of 2014. The Treasury Department is required to review this application and determine whether it meets the requirements set by Congress. The application is currently under review. Here to speak with you today is Ken Feinberg, Special Master for Treasury's implementation of the Klein-Miller Law. But first, a few housekeeping items. We'd like to hear from as many people as we can today. With that in mind, and out of courtesy to others on this call, we ask that you be as brief as possible with your comments. If you are not heard from today, feel free to call back on the next conference call. In general, we hold these calls weekly, and you can find out about the call times and call-in numbers at www.treasury.gov/MPRA. There's also a link on this site for providing written comments. Lastly, keeping in mind that we want to hear from as many of you who want to speak, we ask that for those of you who called in before, be courteous to your fellow plan participants and allow others who have not been heard from yet to speak first. With that in mind, I will turn it over to Mr. Feinberg.
Thank you very much, Eva. Hello, everybody. Once again, our regular Monday afternoon call. Eager to hear from retirees around the nation as to what they think of the Central States proposal. Now remember, these calls are not the only way we reach out to retirees. You can write your comments and send them to us at www.treasury.gov/MPRA. Next week we hold our 6th and 7th town hall meetings. Next Monday in Detroit, next Tuesday in Minneapolis, the following week in St. Louis or Kansas City. We are hearing from hundreds of retirees at these town hall meetings. So, even though I keep repeating, we must follow the law. We cannot change the law. We do have discretion. We are considering all criticism. And we are listening very carefully to what retirees think about this Central States submission. The criticisms of the plan take primarily, but not completely, but take primarily 3 forms. 1, the plan should be scrapped. It won't survive. It's not necessary. These cuts should not be permitted. Kill the Central States submission. 2, regardless of even if you don't kill it, the cuts are inequitable. They don't treat everybody the same. Some people have no cuts, other people have 60% cuts. It's not fair, it's not equitable. Adjust it. 3, the voting rights are ridiculous. An absentee should not be counted as a yes approval of the plan. Those are the major criticisms. Now we want to spend the bulk of the next hour hearing from you, so I turn it back to Deba, and we are ready to begin hearing calls and comments from you, the retirees. Deba.
Thanks, Ken. And Kim, our first caller, please.
Thank you. Our first comment comes from Gary Cruz. Your line is open.
Yes, Mr. Feinberg, thank you for taking my call and for giving us a voice to express our concerns. I worked under a Central States pension plan for 33 years, and Central States proposes to cut my pension over 50%. My concern is that a lot of people who retired under Central States wanted to get a job to supplement their income or perhaps just put back a little money just in case the circumstances we're facing today occurred. But Central States was very restrictive as to what work a retiree could perform. In other words, a retiree could not work in any capacity with a job description that was covered under a union contract. And for me, I'm a full-time caregiver for my 96-year-old mother, as I'm sure a lot of retirees take care of their parents also. And a lot of retirees have health problems. And my question to Central States is, After restricting their retirees from entering the workforce under any job description that was covered under a union contract, how would we be able to re-enter the workforce after being inactive for 10, 15, or 20 years? And what employer is going to hire us after being out of the workforce for that period of time? And if we have health problems we have to list on a job application, that's even more detrimental. And if some of us have made a commitment to give full-time care to our aging parents, where does that leave them? This is why I respectfully ask you to reject the Central States pension cuts, and thank you again for your time and listening to our concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next caller.
Thinking our next comment comes from Danny Rout. Your line is open.
Hi, Mr. Feinberg. I appreciate you taking my call.
Okay.
I'll try to be brief here. I'm just going to give you my situation. Right now, I get $3,185 a month. They want to cut me down to $1,530. Now, I got some figures here I want you to listen to. Currently, per year, I get $38,220. Under their cut, I would get $18,360 a year. In a 10-year period, currently what I'm getting would come up to $382,200. In a 10-year period under the cut, I would get $183,600. Now, Mr. Feinberg, we're talking about a $198,600 difference here in 10 years. Nobody in their right mind would risk almost $200,000. It would be well over $200,000, assuming I saved that extra money over the 10-year period. But nobody in their right mind would risk over $200,000 on a plan that only at best has a 52% chance of success. I'm going to make another comment. All I hear is deregulation. Deregulation happened 30 years ago. We've gone through 7 presidential elections. These people in Central States and the teachers should have went into other lines of work they're being members. But all the time, they're complaining about the deregulation. These people are making, I understand this fellow that runs the pension fund makes almost $700,000 a year. But yet virtually every man that's listening to this call today at one time has worked under a wage cut in order to keep these companies going. I don't know how in the world somebody can sleep at night that's making almost $700,000 a year and ask me to take about almost a 60% pay cut. And I'll tell you, I think God's going to have a special place in hell for these people to run this pension fund into the ground. I hope they're down here with Mussolini and Hitler and the rest of them. And I ask you to reject this. I don't see any reason to even carry this any further. We might as well just vote tomorrow morning and reject it. I haven't talked to anybody. I'm down here in Kentucky. I worked out of Cincinnati, Local 100. I haven't talked to anybody that thinks this is a good deal and is going to vote for it. So all this is, as far as I'm concerned, is just wasting your time and a bunch of people on the internet. I mean, I appreciate all the help these people have given. And I understand you're doing this at no cost, but it seems to me all this time could be better spent doing something else. But I ask you to just reject it.
And thank you very much. I do want to mention one thing you said. You said that the plan and the Teamsters have submitted this proposal. The Teamsters Union has submitted a lengthy submission opposing this and saying the entire plan, like you urge, should be scrapped. And I just wanted to make that clarification.
Well, I understand the Teamsters are, I've heard controversy. I heard that Hoffman was pushing this and then he went against it and whatever. But
all I can tell you is you can go online and see the submission of the Teamsters, and they officially have stated the total opposition to this plan, urging Treasury to reject it, just as you have urged it. So I just want to make that clarification.
I appreciate that, but my complaint is we're talking about deregulation. I mean, you hear deregulation down here in Cincinnati every other day. It happened 30 years ago.
Right.
And they let UPS, the Golden Goose, out of the plan. They should have known this was going to happen.
Yeah.
You can't keep spending more money than you're taking in.
Right.
The government was supposed to overrun this. This country's got money for everybody except the American workers. There's people walking across the Rio Grande down here today that's going to be living better than I am. And I've never asked for a single thing from this government, nothing. I worked 32 years, I called in sick. I worked 32 years, I called in sick 4 days in 32 years. And then they want to put me in a port. I'll be living like a rat. So anyway, I'm sorry to get upset, but, you know, this has been on my mind.
I can understand that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next caller.
I think our next comment comes from John Billingsley.
Yes, Mr. Feinberg, thank you for taking my call. I have like a three-part question or comment. I am an employee of, used to be Roadway Express for 39 years. And we are supposedly now being treated as orphans, but yet we are not on the orphan list. And I would like to know if the yellow employees, since we are both combined into YRC, are the yellow employees treated as orphans? And also about the Holland Motor Company. Since YRC owns them, are they going to be treated as orphans? Or are they going to stand alone and not be treated like orphans, like a double standard? Thank you for taking my call.
The orphan list. What orphan list are you referring to?
Pardon me?
What orphan list are you referring to?
What am I'm sorry, I didn't get that question.
You said that your company isn't on the orphan list?
Yes, Roadway Express is not on the orphan list, but yet they're getting cut like orphans.
No.
We'll check on that. I don't know the answer to that question. The law requires orphans to be cut consistent with the law. Whether or not you're labeled and deemed to be an orphan, we'll check. I have no idea. But we'll check on that.
Thank you.
What's your second question?
One moment, please. Okay, Mr. Billingsley, your line is open, sir.
You said you had another question?
Did you have another comment, sir? Your line is open.
You have another comment?
Yes, I asked about the yellow employees. Are they going to be treated like orphans? And also about Holland Motor Company. Are they going to be treated as orphans?
Again, I can't answer those specific questions. I'm going to go back and look at how the law treats Holland and these other companies. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but we'll try and get you an answer. Thank you very much.
Next caller.
I think your next comment comes from Richard Ford. Your line is open.
Yes, Mr. Feinberg, Richard Ford. I worked for Roadway Express for 34 years and 4 months, and I just haven't been able to understand how some people that worked less time than I did are getting cut a couple of $300, and here I've worked 34 years, and I'm getting cutting almost $1,500, and I understand that we have about 207,000 is what I've been told of retirees right now, and so I took say $300 from 200,000 retirees right now, and if you done that per month, that would be $720 million a year. And the Teamsters Union said, or the Central States Pension Fund said they lost $6.1 billion that UPS paid into the retirement fund to get out of it. And if you take 200,000 drivers, $300 a month, and they say that this is going to be good for 11 years, and then it'll go bankrupt. So if you just take that much money, $300 from each person, $200,000 for 9 years, that is $6,480,000,000. In 9 years, you could have that $6.1 billion already paid back. That whoever's over the pension fund has never had to explain to us how they lost that much money in 1 year.
Well, I can only tell you this. When you ask a very good question about how Central States now finds themselves in this predicament? That is not on my watch. That is a very good question, better addressed to Labor or the Department of Justice, but not Treasury. What I'm required to do under the law is not look at what happened before, or who's to blame, or finger pointing. My job is to evaluate the plan and decide whether or not, if the cuts are made, will that put Central States now in a position where it will be permanently protected from bankruptcy? That's what I'm looking at. And that's why I'm listening to the retirees tell me whether and to what extent these cuts will save the plan or it won't. And that's what we're looking at right now.
You also made a point about having more years of service versus another participant who's getting cut less. And, we can't speak to any individual benefits, but it is good to keep in mind that while the years of service is one of the considerations that Central States used for their formula on these benefit cuts, a big consideration is how much your individual employer contributed to the plan. And so that's, a significant reason why those cuts may be different. But again, because we can't speak on an individual benefit, that's, that I can just tell you that has an impact on everybody's benefit determination.
Thank you very much.
Next caller.
Again, a comment comes from Craig Daniels. Your line is open.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. I've heard that Yellow Freight is paying into escrow, and I've heard today that Yellow Freight will be paying 100% back to the pension fund in 3 years. So I'm asking you to reject the cut.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Next caller.
Yes, our next comment comes from David Weiderman. Your line is open.
Hi, I got a couple questions for you.
Go ahead.
Okay, how are the reductions of the orphans determined from the orphan companies? I mean, I worked for 2 or 3 different companies that got bought out and sold out in the car haul division, and basically for 30 plus years I worked for the same union and contributed to Central States, and they gave me a good year every year that they sent me a report. Never ever was I told for 30 plus years that I was an orphan until I wanted to retire.
Thank you. One of the things with the orphan determination is that if the company that you worked for leaves the plan without paying their full liabilities due to the plan, then you would be designated as Central States, but as an orphan. And it doesn't matter if that happens, 5 days after you start working there or once you retire, even well into your retirement. If it happens at any point, then you would be determined as falling within that group. So, thank you. Next caller.
Okay, next caller is Burley Swift. Your line is open.
Yes, Mr. Steinberg, I've got one comment and one question.
Okay.
My first comment is there's a lot of teachers out there like me that wake up in the middle of the night worrying about our financial future. We don't follow our own. We feel like our pension trustees let us down. Jimmy Hoffa let us down because he let UPS out. And then the senators in Washington put through an unfair law affecting us and causing this all happen to us. And all the teams, they put it through because they didn't like the teachers in the first place. And all the teachers ever asked for was fair wages and good working conditions. And my question to you is, sir, if you know the majority of people want you to turn this down, would you turn it down, or would you say by law you're going to okay it? Thank you, sir, for your time.
Here's my answer. I cannot rely under the law simply on a majority who urge me to turn it down. That's not what the law says. The law says I must evaluate the plan without regard to what the retirees think in the majority and decide whether or not the plan will survive financially if these cuts that they propose are made. Will the plan survive, or even with the cuts, it won't survive? That's the big question. That's what we're looking at. And we're going to be making the determination sometime later this spring. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next call is Ernest Durrett. Your line is open.
Thanks for taking my call. First, I'd like to ask you, Mr. Feinsberg, when you're going to come to the sunny south of Nashville, Tennessee, so we'll get a chance to talk to you face to face. And
I'm not sure we'll get to Nashville. We're trying to spread these town hall meetings out, and we've done a pretty good job. We've already held 5 of them, and we got 3 more scheduled. We shall see. But remember, even if I don't get to Nashville, we've got these phones every week, and we've got the submissions in writing, so we're reading everything. What else do you want to say?
Well, you got a lot of hard-working Teamsters even across the Mason-Dixon line. You'll have to try to remember that. I was just wanting to say that the majority of the people that call in, we want equal cuts if it has to be cut, sir. If they do the math and it has to be cut, be fair about it. I'm 70 years old. I have 34 years. They wanted to cut me 66%. And there's guys that aren't paying any attention to it, saying, oh, well, they're only going to cut me $200 or $150 because they're 78 or 79. And that's unfair. I've been a Teamster all my life, worked hard all my life. I can't help because I was born in 1945 instead of 1936. If we're all going to have to take a cut, it should be across the board on a lower percentage. I'm like the other guys that have called in. I can't survive this. I can't survive it. And third, we're really painting a bad picture for our image as a union. I don't see how anybody would ever have anything to do with a union. Back in the day when I went in a union, overnight was our primary aim, and now it's everybody. There's 95% of the freight companies were union when I went in '66. But we got to be fair about this. They need to, guys. I lost 3 good Teamster brothers within the last week, and they're dying like flies every day. They need to, if they've got to cut this, cut a lower percentage, cut it across the board, and go back and look at it in a year or 2 years. But don't cut a guy 66%. That's ridiculous. Thank you, sir.
Let me just say, that is an argument we have been hearing from retirees over and over and over again, that the cuts, even if they're necessary, are not equitable, and that there's distinctions made and favoritism which can't be justified. And you've made it in a very articulate way. We've heard that argument, and we are listening, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Next caller.
The next caller is Mary Anderson. Your line is open.
Hello, Mr. Feinberg.
Hi.
I was wondering if I heard you right. Did you say that it really doesn't matter what we want, that you have to look at the law, like you say, and determine whether it's a plan that's going to succeed or not? So, but you still want to hear from us, so I'm kind of confused on what you meant by that comment.
What I meant by that comment is that it's not just that I want to hear from retirees and how they would vote. I want to hear qualitatively, not quantitatively, what the retirees say about the impact of the Central State submission on their lives, how the plan will impact their lives, and also I want to hear from them on what they think about the future of Central States. You know, I have discretion to reject the plan under the law if the plan, even with the cuts, cannot survive. The Teamsters have submitted a proposal, a submission to me. It's online. You can read it, where they say, the Teamsters, Mr. Feinberg, reject the Central State submission. Even if you cut retirees the way they want, that won't save the plan. The assumptions are wrong on which the whole Central State submission is based. The assumptions are not credible. They're not valid. Reject the plan. So it is very important that I hear from retirees, not only how the cuts will impact them, because the law talks about the equitable nature of the cuts. So it's important under the law. But also, will the plan survive even with the cuts? And that's another factor we consider. I hope that clarifies things for you.
It did, and I just wanted to say on my behalf is that I am being cut 50%. I'm going from 3,100 down to 15, and I am been a widow for about a year, so I don't have my husband's pension or his Social Security anymore. I am selling my house because I cannot wait until May 7th or July 1st to see if this is even going to happen or not. So it's impacting my life. It's on my mind 24/7, and it's devastating because it's a real scare. Because am I going to be able to afford anything? So
well, let me just say one other thing. As you know, until we render a decision,
right,
no cuts take place. You maintain your current benefits.
Well,
so the fact that we have until May to decide, just remember, until we decide, there will be no cuts as proposed by Central States.
Right, but yes, I understand.
But I understand you can't wait till the last minute. I understand that.
No, I can't.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Our next caller is Jim Toll. Your line is open.
Thank you. Mr. Steinberg? Jim
Yes.
Toll. We keep talking about this, and I'd just like to go to the Central States Pension Fund Rescue Plan and its history. And it says here, it's a question, if benefits go into effect under a rescue plan, can you guarantee that the fund will remain fully funded forever and no further cuts will be needed in the future? Question mark. Response. The Multi-Employer Pension Reform Act of 2014, EMPRA, requires that any pension rescue plan developed must ensure that the pension fund will never go broke. However, nothing is guaranteed because the fund is still dependent upon factors completely outside of its control. So if you look at this under the law, Central State Pension Fund, in writing, admits it can't verify its own set of facts. Thereby, under the law, I ask that you reject this completely based on their own statements, not on anything I say, not on any questions asked. We all know it's a horrible, horrible act that shouldn't have ever been involved, but they're admitting right here They are not in control.
Let me say, you're very good. You've articulated well. I will not accept the Central State submission unless, under the submission, it will survive and thrive. If the cuts will not save the plan, this is the Teamsters' official position. The cuts will not save the plan. The assumptions are wrong. The plan will go belly up anyway, even with the cuts. Then I will reject it. If, on the other hand, under the law, the cuts will preserve the fund in perpetuity, not guaranteed, but likely survive for good, then under the law, I must accept the plan. So I'm hearing what retirees say, the onerous nature of the cuts, whether or not it is justified and the plan will survive is a big question. And we're looking at that right now.
And Central States does a lot of things on their website, but we're doing an independent analysis here at Treasury. We have a team of lawyers and actuaries combing through all 8,000 pages that they've submitted to us. And we're doing that assessment to see whether or not it will survive in the long term. There are always factors that are outside of the plan's control, and that, the law allows for that. So just saying that it's not perfectly guaranteed isn't enough, but we are assessing whether or not they actually have a viable solution to get towards indefinite solvency. And so we're doing that analysis now.
Well, can I just say to you that in plain language and in plain English, they're admitting they are not in control, and therefore I'd ask that you reject it completely. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
I think your next caller is Donald Kane. Your line is open.
Yes, Mr. Feinberg. I would ask you to reject this plan because Kroger is going to pull out 7,000 Teamsters out of Central States, and that's going to be effective 6/30/2016. This is a good reason why the plan is doomed. The Treasury needs to stop the cuts for a further review. And they say that they're going to make 7.5% on our money this year, and I don't see any way they can with the stock market being down. It's more like probably 3.5 is what they can get. And I also wonder, we cannot draw the PBGC through this MPRA, but yet we are still paying into that fund. And I'm going to lose $28,572 of my pension because I'm an orphan, and I won't be able to survive. And that's all I got.
Well, those are very good arguments, and I thank you very much. They are noted. Thank you.
Next caller.
I think our next caller is Judy Weeks. Your line is open.
Mr. Feinberg, I have a question. More so, what I would like to beg you to do is, I know the comment partition ends today at midnight. I'm asking you to extend it at least until you're done doing your visits, because there are so many areas in the Teamster plan that have not even heard of you, don't know about the Treasury website. I just went to a meeting a week ago in Des Moines with over 200 people in a room that had no clue you existed, had no clue there was the Treasury website to write comments. I'm begging you, give them 2 more weeks. We're trying to get the word out, but we need your help to extend it for a little bit longer. Thank you.
We will do so. We will do so. We will extend the comment period into February, towards the end of February. We will extend it in order to give people an opportunity to submit their comments and participate in the town hall meetings on the phone and by writing. Thank you very much.
Next caller.
Next caller is George Moyer. Your line is open.
Thank you. I've been a Teamster for 42 years, and I'm 72 years old. I'm going to ask you to reject this, send it back, tell them to pay us to 2026 if they can't straighten it out in 10 years. and let the Treasury take over on what they're supposed to do. But they're projected to go broke too, so it looks to me like all you people up here that's running everybody's future's done a sloppy-ass job of it. And this thing is stacked against us anyway, because we can vote no, and you can still implement it. So that ain't nothing but dictatorship. And you're going to hurt tens of thousands of Teamsters by doing this. And I ask you to reject it, send it back, and not put this on the back of the retirees. Like,
let me say one thing. You know, you mentioned in your comment that I can reject the vote. Even if you vote against the plan, I can overrule your vote. You're right about that, but I didn't think that up. The law says that. The law requires me to overrule your vote. You think I like that? I don't want to overrule your vote. Also, remember this. There is no vote if I reject the plan. There's only a vote if I approve the plan and send it to you for a vote. So let's just let this play out and we'll see what happens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next caller.
Next caller comes from James Zukowski. Your line is open.
Thank you for taking my call, Mr. Feinberg. You were mentioning something about the future of the Teamster pension plan, and I'm 73 years old, and I'm getting a 50% cut. And all the younger members I've talked to said they would have never joined the Teamsters Union had they known that their future would be with their pensions would be cut so badly, or they would get so little out of it. They're all talking about opting to go into 401ks and dropping out of the Teamster pension plans now. And I don't see any future in the Teamster pension fund at all that's going to last no matter what they cut. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next caller.
I think your next caller comes from Ching Perry. Your line is open.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, hi, Mr. Feinberg. Thank you for taking the call.
Okay.
My first question, I guess, is probably on the law itself. My understanding is it was a law that was piggybacked onto another law, so it didn't go through the usual process of going through the floor and a lot of committee members reading it, et cetera, like the due process. So would that not then make it an amendment to the bill that it was piggybacked to? And then also in the wording of the law itself, there is one paragraph applying to to the MPRA, and it says it's Amendment Number 1 of Contract 215, and the votes on that part of it says there was 8 yay votes or yes votes, 4 no votes, 1 undecided. So why did that even pass to be a law?
You're absolutely right. The law was passed as part of a larger budget law. It was added at the end. That is correct. There were no regular hearings. There were no committee votes. It was a 11th hour decision made by Congress, perfectly legal, I guess. I'm not questioning the legality of it. I'm just saying that's the way it was enacted. That's the law of the land.
Okay,
now, you can blame Congress, but that's the way it happened.
Okay, that was my first question.
Okay.
The second question is, has Central States Pension Fund given you full disclosure of all financial records going back through their time of handling it, the time prior to that with Justice of Labor handling it, and, letting you know what retirees or individual groups, how their breakdowns are. My third question is on the survival solvency. When Central States Pension Fund does these devastating cuts to retirees, how can they possibly entice new members? I've heard they're offering to increase pensions for them further down the road, where basically they would have a higher pension than what we have at this time. So in my opinion, they're throwing us to the wolves at the present time. And if there's no survivability, why are we being thrown to the wolves? Other than it seems to me they're crucifying us to just ensure their futures and not really ensuring the active employees if they're giving them false hopes. So I feel that this should be repealed on all issues: mismanagement by Central States, Justice Department, Labor Department, Congress. You know, they say it takes an act of Congress for us to have anything done. Well, if you can't get Congress to work in the first place, how the hell are we going to get any help? Do we then need an act from the Supreme Court? And are they going to work pro bono for us?
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take the last part first. So you're talking about the sort of viability of the plan over time if this application was approved, and you raised some interesting points. Some of that seems to fall into the sort of assumptions the plan is making about contributions and participation going forward. And that is something that we're looking at, so that's helpful. We have to look ourselves and see if we think that those assumptions are reasonable and reflect what is reasonably likely to happen. Working backwards, when you talk about sort of records, have we investigated what's happened in the past? Ken had said this before, what we have.
After the tone, please state your name.
John Anderson.
Thank you.
Wrongdoings of the past. It's our responsibility to implement the process laid out in the law, which starts with that application. And like I've said, we've made that public so that the public has what we have, and we're looking at it closely. Next caller, please.
Thank you. And our next caller comes from David Bedell. Your line is open.
Thank you, Mr. Feinberg, for accepting my call today. I'm from Canton, Ohio, Local 92. I make $2,000 a month as of right now, and with these cuts, I'll be a little more than $900 a month. My wife's on disability; she can't work. So if these go through, I'll be devastated and have to look to live under a bridge or something. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Next caller.
I think our next caller comes from Robert Gilbert. Your line is open.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Feinberg. First statement I had was an absentee vote, or an absentee should not be a yes vote. If someone doesn't vote, it should not automatically be counted as a yes vote. And another question is, why in all papers and everything we read and everything we got, I worked for UPS for 31 years, and they papers and the internet both stated that we would be cut probably in the neighborhood of 22%. Yet we're seeing 50%. Also, if UPS paid in all of its dues when they pulled out of the fund, why are we being cut 50% when they've paid all the funds that they were due to pay when they let them out of the union?
Well, first of all, the law that was passed by Congress requires that an absentee vote be treated as a yes in favor. That's what the law says. Now, Senator Portman of Ohio has introduced legislation to prevent that. I don't know whether it'll pass or not, but he introduced it. Secondly, UPS, go online and you'll read the UPS submission to our office. They want the plan rejected. They say UPS employees are treated unfairly and illegally under the plan that was submitted. So UPS is against it. We shall see. But I wanted to answer both of those questions for you.
That's right. And then a small factoid. We've heard that 22% number a lot. I believe Central States has publicized that number on their website, on some fact sheets. What they're doing is I think they're taking the average, assuming all of the people who are exempted by statute in the denominator, and that's what gets them to 22%. And that's why it sort of doesn't track what people are seeing on their own notices. Next caller, please.
Excuse me. Yes? I call it the donut hole for lack of a better term. But we retired before January 1st of 2008, so we are considered basically orphans. UPS doesn't want to pay us, and we're left to kind of hang out on our own. I don't understand how we got cut out of that deal, but UPS just dropped us like a dirty shirt.
So we are looking at how Central States tiers their planned cuts, including the group that contains at least some UPS service earners. So we're looking at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next caller, please.
Thank you. Next caller is Ronald Stout. Your line is open.
Thank you for taking my call this afternoon. I would like to have this plan rejected because my wife does not work. We are both 75 years old. They take over 50% of my pension. It's just going to be devastating. We don't even know if we'll be able to keep our home. I guess that's about, and I know there's a lot of other Teamsters that's in the same situation, and I joined the Teamsters in '63. So thank you very much for taking my call, and maybe we can get something done.
Thank you.
Next caller, please.
Your next caller comes from Dennis Singer. Your line is open. Mr. Singer, your line is open, sir. Okay, we'll go into the next caller. Paul Pankoff, your line is open.
Yes, I'm just calling. In April of 2014, we got a letter from Central States stating that if you are already receiving your pension as of April 8th of 2008, the date of the fund's initial 2008 notice of critical status, your benefits will not be affected. And now all of a sudden they're telling us it is going to be affected. And also I'm with a lot of the other guys with make it all equal. Don't make, 10%, 5%, 60%, and all that other stuff. And are the trustees and the executives and Hoffa and all those, are they also taking a 60% cut in their wages?
No.
That's right. And then with respect to the letter you received in 2008, I think that was pursuant to the status sort of hierarchy set up in the Pension Protection Act. The MPRA law amends that law and creates a new status and creates the ability for plans in that new status to cut vested benefits. And Central States is a plan in that status. It's critical and declining, and they have applied to do just what we've been talking about, a set of cuts to vested benefits that were under prior law not allowed. So what you saw in that letter was a product of a law that was good at the time and has since been changed. And that's what we're working on now.
We keep talking about the law. Why do we only pick and choose what laws they're going to enforce? Prime example, illegal aliens. But, everybody keeps talking about the law. We have to enforce the law. And it doesn't seem right. They're like picking and choosing, and the Teamsters are the ones that are getting caught in the middle of this.
Well, I can only tell you this. The latest law that was passed by Congress makes it clear what I can do and not do in my discretion. Now, I haven't decided what I'm going to do. So don't assume that I'm going to allow this to go through. We're taking a look at it under the law. We have to follow the law. I don't know about selective law enforcement, but I can't ignore this statute. I have to follow it. So we shall see what happens in the spring. Thank you very much.
Next caller, please.
Thank you. Our next caller is David Savesky. Your line is open.
Well, thank you for taking my call. I also have been a lifelong Teamster member and retired, and they're going to cut me 60%, which is going to devastate me. Just too old to drive truck anymore. I just can't do it. But the problem is they're not doing it equal. They have, just like everyone else has said, they haven't done it equal. And I urge you to reject this plan because of the devastation it's going to have, not only on the people they're cutting, but it's going to have a devastation effect on the overall government as itself. The pension is taxed by the federal government approximately, I think, 25%. Now, if you cut everybody 60%, think of the volume of the tax loss you're going to have and how it's going to affect the federal government. Not only affecting the Teamsters, it's going to affect the federal government. It's going to just be a domino effect. And this whole plan is totally unfair. The Central States Pension Fund was taken over by the government in '76. It was government appointed. They appointed the people that run it, and it's been totally mismanagement. And basically, the law seems to me to be a conflict between the Treasury Department, a government entity, and a entity of the Central States Pension Fund, which was taken over by the government at a period of time.
Thank you very much for those comments. One last question before we finish today.
That's right. Next caller, please.
Thank you. Our next caller is Chris Pitcock. Your line is open.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time for my call. I've got a couple issues. I just turned 57, 34 years of service, want to retire, and I got off the phone with Central States today and can't get any answers as to what my status will be for reemployment. Because under the rescue plan, there's no language provided for a person in my position. It starts with age 62. Like I said, I'm only 57, so anybody from 57 to 62, there is no reemployment rules for us at all. That's number one. Number two, I also am in the car haul division, and under our national contract, we had rights to follow the business. A lot of us have been, myself, with 3 different companies now, but never missed a pension payment. Each company continued on. We have language pertaining to a different company coming in and getting the traffic as what happened to us in 2010, where Jack Cooper took over for Allied. We worked for Jack Cooper for 3-4 years before Allied actually went out of business, but yet we're considered orphans. I also am taken, with a letter I got, a 50% cut. I want this plan rejected. Thank you.
Thank you. On your first question, I don't have the answer right now, but if you email mprainfo@treasury.gov, we can check on the reemployment rules. As of right now, off the top of my head, I don't recall there being an age limit and that you're too young, but I want to make sure I get that right. So please email your question to MPRA info, and we'll give you an answer.
Okay, I can do that, but the other thing is I got off the phone with Central States today, and they're absolutely no help. They will not assist you in any given way or form. You know, I couldn't get any answers from them at all.
I appreciate it.
You will from us.
And we will, yeah. If you email that question in, we'll get you an answer, because that's a fairly straightforward answer. I just don't have the plan in front of me to give you that answer. I don't want to give you the wrong answer. On the second part about successive employers providing contributions, and you're not the first person to raise that. And you know, the way that the Central States plan is written, they consider anyone whose employer does not continue to provide contributions, usually because they went out of business, to be an orphan. That means that if you complete your service while they're contributing, and then you are in retirement, and they then go bankrupt, you're still considered an orphan per Central States. You're not the first person to raise that, and we are going to continue looking at it, but that is a common theme we've been hearing a lot about.
Thank you all. Diva? Through?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Everybody, if you didn't get a chance to make your question, next Monday, 3 o'clock, we will do this again. And we have extended the comment period to the end of February. And anything else anybody want to add at this end?
No, that's right. You should keep writing. We'll formally extend it in a couple days, but we will consider everything we're getting. So
Monday at 4:30, we will be in Detroit. Next Tuesday at 4:30, we will be in Minneapolis.
That's right.
For town hall meetings. So go to the Treasury website and it'll tell you where we're meeting, etc. And maybe I'll see some of you at those meetings. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. This concludes today's conference. You may disconnect at this time.